Hey guys, tonight we're re-traveling back to where civilization first blinked awake, to a damp floodplain between two restless rivers where humans are about to make choices that will echo for millennia. Frankly, you probably wouldn't last 3 days here without modern medicine. But that's what makes this journey so fascinating. It's around 10,000 BCE, and the last ice age's chill has barely lifted. Before you, the Tigris River churns with spring runoff, while behind you, the Euphrates moves slower, its muddy waters heavy with fertile silt. This is the Fertile Crescent at dawn, quite literally at dawn, as a pink sun crests over the eastern marshes where egrets stalk fish in the shallows. Round huts with sunken floors rise from the mud, their reed walls plastered with clay that cracks amusingly in the sun like a bad facial. Inside one dwelling, a potter experiments with mixing river clay and crushed shells. The first clumsy attempts at ceramics that will someday become legendary. Mesopotamian pottery. They're building a fish weir, a semi-permanent structure that traps fish with the tides. It's the world's first accounting system. Each stone represents a debt of grain owed between families. An elder begins the "when I was young" story that every generation knows. But tonight's tale has a new urgency. He speaks of the great flood that covered the land when he was a boy, how the waters rose until only the family's goats had high ground to stand on. The same constellations these early farmers used to predict the seasons still shine above us today, though they'd give them different names and stories. As the last embers fade, you realize you're re-witnessing the most profound yet quietest revolution in human history. The moment we stopped merely surviving and began deliberately shaping our world. The noise is constant. Hammers on copper, merchants haggling over wool prices, and somewhere in the distance, what sounds suspiciously like the world's first traffic jam. Climbing the steep ramp, your sandals stick slightly to the bitumen between the bricks. The world's first major public works project. At the summit, a priest in a fleece skirt chants prayers to the sky god while scribbling marks on a damp clay tablet. Below him, the city spreads out like a living organism. A water carrier nearly douses you as he rushes by, his leather sacks sloshing with Euphrates water destined for some wealthy merchant's home. The children listen not realizing they're hearing what will become the prototype for flood myths, from Noah to Gil. Historians still argue whether this reflects actual catastrophic flooding or symbolic rebirth narratives. But as you watch the firelight dance on intent faces, the distinction seems unimportant. The quirky historical tidbit: some stones have crude faces scratched on them, likely the earliest IOU notes how two men debate whether to plant nearer the riverbank despite flood risks. Even how dogs not yet fully domesticated linger at the village edge, transitioning from wolves to companions. Everywhere you look, humanity is unconsciously building the framework of civilization, one pragmatic solution at a time. Meanwhile, near the pottery area, someone is experimenting with heating malachite stones in the hottest part of the fire, the very first steps toward metallurgy that will eventually produce copper tools. It's brilliant engineering, but it means less prestige for those who hunt gazelle with spears. Gone are the sleepy farming villages of centuries past. Before you rises Uru, a city so massive it would make your Neolithic ancestors' heads spin. The stench hits you first, a potent cocktail of human sweat, animal dung, fermenting beer, and something suspiciously like ancient garbage soup. Welcome to 3400 BCE, where civilization is about to level up in ways nobody could have predicted. You can already see the social hierarchy shifting. The woman who remembers when to plant each crop now gets the choicest cuts of meat at meals. Nearby, children play a game that involves tossing pebbles into a circle scratched in the dirt, their laughter mixing with the grunts of semi-domesticated pigs rooting at the village's edge. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. That surplus grain you saw being harvested earlier, it's now stored in mud-plastered pits, and for the first time in human history, not everyone has to hunt or gather today. A lanky teenager sits cross-legged near the communal fire, painstakingly chipping flakes from an obsidian core to make arrowheads. He is becoming the village's first dedicated toolmaker. His sister twists plant fibers into cordage, inventing knots that will later secure everything from fishing nets to the first sails. Where's everyone listening from tonight? Drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air hangs thick with the scent of wet clay and wild onions as you stand barefoot in the soggy soil of what will one day be called Mesopotamia. You hear laughter before you see them, a band of hunter-gatherers returning to their favorite seasonal camp. But something's different this year. Instead of just harvesting wild barley and moving on, they're clearing stones from a flat area near the riverbank. A woman named Ninti kneels in the dirt, carefully separating the plumpest wheat kernels from her gathering basket. Her calloused fingers move with unexpected precision as she pushes seeds into the soft earth, not randomly scattering them like her mother did, but placing them in neat rows. It's a small change, but it will revolutionize everything. As you observe, the mainstream historical fact becomes clear. These people are domesticating plants and animals through unconscious selection. Those early wheat stalks stand barely knee-high compared to modern varieties, more like decorative grass than the golden fields we imagine. Historians still hotly debate whether agriculture was humanity's greatest innovation or our original sin. Were we cultivating plants, or were they cultivating us? The settlement takes shape around you with surprising speed. The golden light of late afternoon slants through the village as the true implications of this settled life begin to unfold. Near the riverbank, the real magic happens. A gruff old hunter, once the most respected member of the group, watches with dismay as younger men pile rocks into the water. As evening falls, the village reveals its hidden complexities. That pile of smooth stones near the central fire. The stars emerge as the community gathers around the fire. As you settle into the rhythm of this ancient world, notice the small revolutions everywhere. The way a mother uses a curved gourd to measure grain portions. The night deepens, and the village quietens, except for the occasional cry of a baby or rustle of livestock. The morning sun beats down on your neck as you stand at the edge of what can only be described as the world's first urban sprawl. You pick your way through the outskirts of the city, dodging donkeys laden with pottery and children chasing chickens through the maze of mud brick houses. At the city's heart looms the Onu ziggurat, its whitewashed walls glowing like a beacon. Climbing the steep ramp, your sandals stick slightly to the bitumen between the bricks. The world's first major public works project. At the summit, a priest in a fleece skirt chants prayers to the sky god while scribbling marks on a damp clay tablet. Below him, the city spreads out like a living organism. The craftsman's quarter. Potters' wheels spin endlessly while metalworkers hammer the first copper tools that will revolutionize everything from farming to warfare. But the quirky reality, those first cuneiform tablets aren't recording poetry or laws. They're beer receipts. In a dim, smoke-filled storeroom, temple officials weigh silver rings on balanced scales while recording every shekel on clay tablets. Nearby, a frustrated bureaucrat argues with a farmer about taxes paid in sheep rather than grain, proving some problems are truly timeless. Sailors swap stories of sea monsters, while dock workers haul crates using a clever system of ramps and rollers. Early logistics in action. One trader displays exotic animals, including a confused-looking monkey that's drawing quite the crowd. The quirky historical detail. Some of these merchants use baked clay tokens sealed in hollow balls as early contracts. The literal origin of getting the ball rolling on deals. This isn't just a city. It's a blueprint for every metropolis that will follow. The same urban problems we face today, crowding, sanitation, inequality, were being worked out here in clay in reeds 5,000 years ago. He.S. performing what future archaeologists will call the most important chemistry experiment in history, smelting copper or into usable metal. His master craftsman demonstrates the new fast wheel technique that's revolutionizing ceramics, producing vessels so symmetrical and thin-walled they make IKEA designers weep with envy. Dozens of women sit in shaded courtyards, their fingers flying as they work the world's first industrial-scale looms. The rhythmic clack-clack of wooden shuttles creates an almost hypnotic soundtrack. They reweaving wool so fine it would later be called the cashmere of antiquity. A ship from distant unloads pearls so luminous they make the tax assessor's fingers tremble as he counts them. Traders argue passionately over weights and measures, their voices rising as they appeal to the new standard measures instituted by ERS rulers. The mainstream historical fact. This represents one of humanity's first attempts at standardized weights. The quirky detail. The standard unit is based on the weight of 180 barley grains, because nothing says official measurement system like cereal. Nearby, a merchant from Meluha demonstrates how his mysterious locking containers work, the ancient equivalent of tamper-proof packaging, and judging by the temple records being etched into clay nearby, every inch is being meticulously taxed. The mainstream historical fact. This marks the official transition from Stone Age to Copper Age. The quirky reality. After millennia of wading through sewage, someone finally invented urban plumbing. Laborers with sun-weathered skin haul bricks up ramps for the latest ziggurat expansion, their backs straining under loads that would violate modern OSHA standards. Nearby, a scribe lounges in the shade, his clean hands and oiled beard marking him as part of our burgeoning middle class. He is carefully recording a business transaction that essentially reads, "Received 30 jars of date wine. Note, 3 jars suspiciously watery." Some things never change. Of course, there is still the occasional aromatic surprise when a careless resident dumps chamber pots at the wrong hour. But progress takes time. His first products aren't weapons or tools, but fancy cocktail cups for the elite. The stars above Uruk are the same ones that will shine over Babylon, Rome, and eventually your own hometown, silent witnesses to humanity's unbroken chain of innovation. Kushum just became the first person in history to have his name recorded. All meanwhile, laborers crowd into taverns drinking beer through long straws from communal jars. On a rooftop, an apprentice astronomer squints at the stars, recording Venus's movements on a tablet, data that will remain accurate for millennia. Historians still debate whether these early scientists were true astronomers or just religious officials tracking omens, but their legacy is undeniable. In a shadowy corner, a dice game turns heated. Archaeologists have found gambling tokens from this era proving some people never learn. A spice merchant claims his cinnamon can cure everything from baldness to bad luck. We're fast-forwarding to 3000 BCE, where civilization isn't just surviving. It's starting to show off. All around you, artisans are pushing boundaries in ways that would make their Uruk ancestors gasp. Nearby, a money changer carefully compares weights of silver, the preferred currency before coins existed. You overhear snippets of conversations that could be from any modern city, complaints about rising prices, gossip about the priest king's new wife, and debates about whether this year's flood will be worse than last, because he needed to document 29 measures of barley paid to the temple. Historians still argue whether writing developed for economic necessity or religious purposes, but judging by the number of beer-related tablets, we might have our answer. The market district. Traders from distant lands hawk everything from Lebanese cedar to Afghan lapis lazuli residential areas. Multi-room homes for the elite stand shoulder to shoulder with single-room homes, proving urban inequality was invented right here. The mainstream historical fact hits you as you watch a scribe painstakingly press wedge-shaped marks into clay. This is where writing was born. As afternoon shadows stretch across the city, you notice Uruk's true genius. Its bureaucracy. The marketplace buzzes with activity that would feel familiar today. Down by the docks, ships unload goods from across the known world. As evening falls, the social hierarchy becomes visible. The elite retire to courtyard houses where servants serve roasted duck and date wine. The night air carries the scent of cedar burning in temple braziers as priests begin their celestial observations. As you find a quiet spot to rest near a murmuring irrigation canal, the full weight of Urak's accomplishments settles over you. The metallic tang of copper hangs thick in the air as you enter your workshop district at high noon. A shirtless metalworker catches your eye, his arms glistening with sweat as he pumps bellows to intensify the furnace flames. Next door, a potter's wheel spins at dizzying speeds, operated by an apprentice who keeps nervously licking his lips. But the real action is happening in the textile quarter. As you wander through the bustling streets, you notice something revolutionary beneath your feet. Proper drainage channels lined with bitumen-soaked bricks. The social hierarchy becomes visible as you approach the city center. As the sun begins its descent, you're drawn to the docks where commerce never sleeps. But the real spectacle is happening at the silver market. Traders argue passionately over weights and measures, their voices rising as they appeal to the new standard measures instituted by UAE's rulers. The mainstream historical fact. This represents one of humanity's first attempts at standardized weights. The quirky detail. The standard unit is based on the weight of 180 barley grains, because nothing says official measurement system like cereal. In a smoke-filled tavern, Off-duty sailors swap tailies that grow taller with each jar of beer. One grizzled veteran claims to have seen islands where fire spurts from the ground. His companion scoffs, insisting the real wonder is the northern land where amber washes up like sea foam. It's 3200 BCE, and you're about to witness one of humanity's most revolutionary moments, the birth of writing. The sound is hypnotic, hundreds of triangular reed tips going tick-ticket as they press wedge-shaped marks into the soft surface. This is cuneiform in its infancy, and the first thing you notice is how physical the process is. In one corner, a senior scribe experiments with combining signs to represent sounds rather than objects, the crucial leap from pictographs to true writing. Nearby, another scratches his head over how to record a personal name, finally settling on a creative mashup of existing signs that sound out, and a merchant argues with a priest over a shipment discrepancy, both repeatedly consulting their tablets like ancient spreadsheets. Nearby, a father teaches his son basic signs in the dust, the world's first parent helping with homework moment. And in what might be history's earliest known bureaucratic snafu, two officials nearly come to blows over a missing tablet. That turns out to be under a third official's elbow the whole time. But today isn't just about accounting. You're about to witness writing's evolution from practical tool to something far more profound. It's clumsy, but it works. The first glimmer of his stylus moves deliberately, pressing wedges that translate to, "Oh Inanna, why have you abandoned me like a broken jar?" Some of the earliest literary texts are essentially ancient Yelp reviews, complaints about bad copper quality, or a merchant's dishonest weights. One particularly scathing review of a tavern could have been written yesterday. It's raw, personal, and revolutionary. The moment writing escapes its bureaucratic cage to express individual emotion. Nearby, another scribe experiments with combining signs to create the first metaphorical language, using the sign for heart plus water to mean tears. In a quiet corner, one scribe, let us call him Enkidu because he deserves a name, is on just recording quantities. He's adding extra signs, little flourishes to his notations. Some of these very tablets will survive 5,000 years to be deciphered by modern archaeologists. As you watch the scribes depart, their robes fluttering in the evening breeze, you realize you've witnessed something extraordinary. The moment when humanity figured out how to make thoughts permanent, to speak across millennia. And it all started because some temple official really needed to keep track of his sheep. At first, you think it's decorative, until you realize he's adding commentary. A sarcastic note about the quality of this year's wool, a doodle of his supervisor looking particularly grumpy. It's the first glimmer of writing as personal expression, the seed that will grow into everything from love poetry to epic tallies. One young apprentice massages his cramping hand while his teacher barks corrections. "No, idiot boy. The barley sign angles left, not right." The chief scribe makes his rounds, inspecting work with a critical eye. One poor apprentice receives a sharp rap on the knuckles for his sloppy wedges, the ancient equivalent of a bad performance review. But there's excitement too. Talk of a new system being developed to record the king's annual victories, a project that will require ever more sophisticated writing. But forget everything you know about romantic poets scratching verses. What's happening here is far more practical, and honestly, more fascinating. These early tablets aren't recording poetry or laws, but temple inventory. So many jars of oil, so many baskets of grain, so many sheep delivered. The quirky detail, some of the earliest signs are literal pictures pressed into clay, a stylized ox head for cattle, a jar with wavy lines for oil. But already you can see them simplifying, abstracting, becoming symbols rather than pictures. A mother sings her child to sleep with a lullaby that archaeologists will one day reconstruct from cuneiform tablets, making it the oldest known melody still in existence. As the last notes fade into the night, you realize with a start that this is no longer just survival, it's culture. Historians still debate how far these early traders actually traveled, but the archaeological record proves their goods moved across astonishing distances. As night falls, you're granted rare access to the scribal school. The chief scribe, his beard oiled and his robe edged with expensive blue pigment, dictates to underlings while sipping date wine. Junior scribes hunch over their tablets, their fingers permanently stained with clay. And in a shadowy corner, a single female scribe works meticulously. Rare, but not unheard of in these early days. Historians still debate whether women's declining status in later Mesopotamia resulted from or was reflected by their disappearance from scribal records. In a courtyard illuminated by flickering oil lamps, students labor over their tablets. The punishment for mistakes is brutal. One unfortunate boy must copy the same sales contract 50 times for misspelling sheep. But the rewards are great. The top graduate will land a coveted position tracking the temple's beer inventory. The evening's most poignant moment comes at a modest house near the city walls. The stars over Ur shine just as brightly as they did over those first Neolithic villages. But the world beneath them has transformed beyond recognition. What began as simple mud huts has become a complex civilization with specialists, standards, and even schools. As you settle onto a reed mat for the night, the distant sound of a god's bronze spear tapping against stone serves as a reminder. The Bronze Age is coming, and Ur is ready to meet it. The scent of burning cedar wood mixes with the temps of wet clay as you enter the dimly lit scriptorium of Ur's inner temple complex. Rows of scribes sit cross-legged on red mats, their styluses dancing across damp clay tablets. The mainstream historical fact hits you as you observe their work. Writing began as accounting. As you move through the scriptorium, you witness the system evolving in real time. The social hierarchy here is fascinating. Outside in the temple courtyard, the practical applications unfold. The afternoon sun slants through the high windows as you notice something remarkable happening. As evening falls, the scribes clean their styluses and cover unfinished tablets with damp cloths. The night air carries the scent of baking tablets from the kill house, where important records are being fired for permanence. Dawn breaks over Uruk with a peculiar sound, the rhythmic scraping of hundreds of clay tablets being smoothed for a new day's work. In the temple's inner sanctum, a priest scribe carefully composes what future archaeologists will identify as the first known personal prayer. The mainstream historical fact becomes clear. Within just a few generations, cuneiform evolved from simple accounting to complex literature. But the quirky reality: some of the earliest literary texts are essentially ancient Yelp reviews, complaints about bad copper quality or a merchant's dishonest weights. One particularly scathing review of a tavern could have been written yesterday. In the marketplace, a merchant shows off his seal of approval, a cylinder roll pressed into clay that authenticates his goods. At the city gates, announcements of tax rates and legal judgments are displayed on large clay tablets. A senior scribe compiles omens from bird flights, not just recording them, but attempting to systematize them. If a falcon flies from right to left, the harvest will be good. The same system that records prayers and literature also documents slave sales and war captives. A particularly chilling tablet lists 42 female workers from Arata with coal deficiency. Nearby, the city's first known censorship occurs as a priest scrapes away a line criticizing the king's new tax policy. This represents the birth of scientific thinking, the attempt to find patterns in nature, however misguided the methodology might seem today. An elderly merchant who never learned the new system argues bitterly with a young scribe over the interpretation of a contract. Oil lamps flicker as scribes work late, their shadows dancing on the walls. It's 2500 BC. A Mesopotamian religion has evolved from simple nature worship into a full-blown divine bureaucracy. That would make modern tax agencies blush. The air vibrates with the rhythmic chanting of priests and the metallic clang of offerings being counted, because even spirituality comes with receipts. One particularly dedicated scholar has developed an early dictionary, listing signs with their pronunciations and meanings, the ancestor of every reference book that will follow. Farmers deliver their tithes, artisans bring crafted offerings, and even prostitutes contribute their earnings, all carefully recorded by squinting scribes. Priests place lavish meals before curtained divine statues, then discreetly whisk the food away to the temple kitchens after the gods have eaten. The menu tablets reveal deities had particular tastes. Enki prefers fish, while Inanna demands the spiciest dishes. Later, this same food will be redistributed to temple workers in what may be history's first institutional cafeteria system. One tablet being pressed reads, "Received from Uranamu 5 fattened sheep, 3 jars of first-pressed oil, and 1 daughter." Historians still debate whether temple prostitution was sacred rites or economic exploitation, but the meticulous records show it was definitely profitable. His angry eyebrows seem to frown specifically at you as he's carried past. In one chamber, scribes tally up the divine income. taxes paid in grain, oil, and livestock that technically belong to the gods but practically feed the city. Next door, teams of workers weigh silver offerings on exquisitely balanced scales, their tongues poking out in concentration. A particularly fastidious priest argues with a merchant about whether a consignment of lapis meets temple quality standards, proving holy procurement has always been contentious. This isn't just ritual, it's serious business. The mainstream historical fact: temples functioned as the world's first corporations, controlling vast agricultural lands, workshops, and trade networks. The quirky detail: their accounting includes notes like one sacrificial goat. Their heated exchange reveals the growing divide between literate and illiterate in society. Even love notes appear, like the one you spot being surreptitiously passed between two teenagers. Your beauty shines brighter than Nana's light. History's first known Hey Gorgeous text. It's not yet the Epic of Gilgamesh, but you recognize elements that will later appear in that masterpiece. Tales of flood heroes, of gods walking the earth, of the eternal struggle between wilderness and civilization. A homesick young scribe from a distant city writes to his mother, carefully pressing out signs that say, "The food here is terrible. My supervisor is cruel, but I'm learning much. Send more socks." The universal experience of being far from home hasn't changed in 5 millennia. The scribes couldn't have imagined that future scholars would puzzle over their grocery lists and love notes, finding in them the roots of our shared humanity. And as you watch the lamps being extinguished one by one, you understand that writing wasn't just invented here. It was reinvented every day, with each new thought pressed into clay. The scribe pauses, chewing his stylus end, searching for just the right combination of signs to capture a complex thought. What began as simple marks to count sheep has become something extraordinary, a technology that can preserve law, literature, personal letters, and even jokes across centuries. As you watch a junior scribe carefully shelve the day's tablets, you realize these clay rectangles contain the first sparks of everything that makes us human: our stories, our laws, our dreams, and our complaints about bad beer. As you move through the city, writing's transformative power becomes visible everywhere. The scribal school buzzes with new energy today. Students no longer just learn accountancy. They memorize vocabulary lists, practice royal inscriptions, and even attempt early mathematics. One advanced student struggles with a geometry problem calculating field areas. His teacher's corrections showed the first known use of "show your work" in education. Historians still debate whether these schools taught critical thinking or just rote memorization, but the range of texts they produced suggests lively intellectual activity. In a shaded courtyard, something extraordinary is taking shape. The afternoon brings a startling discovery. In a small chamber off the main archive, a scribe works on what can only be called early literature. As the heat of the day wanes, you notice writing's dark side emerging. The social implications unfold before your eyes. Those who master writing rise in status. Those who don't become increasingly marginalized. As night falls, the scriptorium takes on an almost magical atmosphere. In a quiet moment, you witness something profoundly human. The moon rises over Uruk as the last scribes put away their tools. Some of these very tablets will survive wars, empires, and the collapse of civilizations to speak to us directly across 50 centuries. The scent of roasting meat and myrrh greets you as you enter the bustling temple complex of Nipper, where the gods are about to get very particular about their bookkeeping. You barely avoid being trampled by a procession of temple attendants, carrying an elaborate golden statue of Enlil, the chief god. As you explore the temple's storerooms, the scale of operations becomes staggering. The real action happens in the courtyard where the divine economy comes alive. As noon approaches, you witness the daily feeding ceremony, and it's not what you'd expect. Priests place lavish meals before curtained divine statues, then discreetly whisk the food away to the temple kitchens after the gods have eaten. The menu tablets reveal deities had particular tastes. Enki prefers fish, while Inanna demands the spiciest dishes. Later, this same food will be redistributed to temple workers in what may be history's first institutional cafeteria system. The afternoon takes a darker turn in the divination chamber. A liver specialist examines a freshly sacrificed sheep's organs, reading the future in their lobes and veins. His apprentice takes meticulous notes. If the gallbladder resembles a crescent moon, the king will fall ill. Nearby, another priest interprets oil patterns in water, while a third studies the flight patterns of birds outside. Their conclusions will guide everything from military campaigns to the price of barley futures. It's equal parts science and superstition, with the line between the two frustratingly blurred. As shadows lengthen, you're drawn to the sound of children's voices. In the temple school, young acolytes learn the fine art of celestial observation. One group tracks Venus's movements with surprising accuracy, while another struggles to memorize the complex pantheon. Their textbooks include everything from medical remedies to flood myths, all presented as divine knowledge. The punishment for mistakes: copying hymns until your hands cramp, the ancient equivalent of writing lines. The temple's economic reach becomes clear as you peek into the textile workshops. Dozens of women spin and weave under strict supervision, producing garments both for religious use and commercial trade. Their output is staggering. One record shows 300 bolts of cloth produced monthly. The working conditions, let us just say, OSHA would have field day with the no breaks during solar eclipses rule. As evening falls, the temple transforms into a different kind of center. Ordinary citizens bring personal offerings to smaller shrines. Clay figurines of aching body parts they want healed, tiny models of houses for blessings, even crude fertility symbols. The air fills with whispered prayers, and the clink of offerings dropping into collection boxes. It's intimate, personal religion thriving alongside the grand state cult. The night's most fascinating ritual begins at moonrise. Priestesses perform the sacred marriage ceremony, where the king symbolically weds the goddess Inanna to ensure fertility for the land. The actual proceedings are hidden behind heavy curtains, but the feasting afterward is very public. As you watch nobles gorge on roasted oxen and date wine, you realize this isn't just religion. It's political theater, economic redistribution, and social control all rolled into one elaborate package. The scent of dawn incense greets you as we return to Nippur's temple complex, where the morning rituals reveal religion's gritty behind-the-scenes reality. A bleary-eyed priest counts jars of sacred oil, muttering about missing inventory. Nearby, a junior acolyte scrubs altar steps with natron solution, his nose wrinkled at the stubborn bloodstains from yesterday's sacrifices. This isn't just spirituality, it's holy housekeeping, and someone's got to do the dirty work. In the administrative offices, the temple's true power becomes clear. Scribes process loan agreements at staggering 20% interest rates. A farmer pleads for an extension on his debt, offering his son as collateral, a common practice recorded without emotion. Nearby, legal disputes are settled with appeals to divine justice, including one case where a suspected thief must plunge his hand into boiling water to prove innocence. The verdict: let's just say his screams suggest the gods weren't pleased. The mainstream historical fact emerges. Mesopotamian temples were essentially the world's first banks, hospitals, and courthouses rolled into one. The quirky detail: their medical treatments often involve spiritual and practical elements. Recite an incantation to the healing goddess Gu, then apply a poultice of honey and turmeric. One prescription tablet reads, "For eye affliction." Recite the hymn to Demu 7 times. Then, apply a crushed lapis lazuli mixed with breast milk. Historians still debate whether these treatments worked better than prayer alone. As midday heat shimmers over the courtyards, you witness the temple's role in knowledge preservation. In a cool cellar, archivists organize thousands of tablets covering everything from star charts to demon banishment rituals. Their classification system is surprisingly sophisticated. Legal documents are stored separately from literary works, each sealed in labeled clay jars. One particularly fastidious librarian berates an assistant for misfiling a collection of omens. Though if a lizard falls in your beer, predictions go with household signs, not agricultural ones. The afternoon reveals religion's darker and in a secluded chamber, exorcists perform elaborate rituals to expel demons believed to cause disease. Their tools include frightening masks, copper daggers, and somewhat inexplicably, a dried fish. Nearby, sin-eaters take on community guilt by ritually consuming cursed food, then being banished to the wilderness. It's equal parts psychology and supernatural belief, with no clear line between the two. As you explore further, the temple's economic innovations become apparent. In the crafts quarter, workers produce standard-sized bricks, uniform weights, and other measures that will become the basis of fair trade. Their quality control is meticulous. One overseer rejects an entire batch of silver rings for being 2% underweight. This obsession with standards isn't just practical, it's theological. The gods demand order, and metrology is how humans deliver it. The temple's outreach programs surprise you. Priestesses run what might be history's first orphanage, taking in children of deceased temple workers. Their records show remarkable detail. Girl 7 years, father deceased in canal accident, to be trained in weaving. Nearby, healers treat paupers for free. Even the food redistribution, while politically motivated, keeps many from starvation during lean years. As sunset paints the ziggurat gold, you're granted access to the most sacred space, the cellar where the deity's statue resides. The air is thick with the scent of rare woods and precious oils. The statue itself is smaller than you expected, but breathtakingly adorned in gold and lapis lazuli. A priest performs the evening toilet ritual, carefully removing yesterday's jewelry, washing the statue's face, and dressing it in fresh finery. It's strangely intimate, this daily care for the divine. The night's grand finale is a lunar observation ceremony. On the ziggurat's summit, astronomers tracked the moon's movements with astonishing precision, comparing notes with centuries of previous records. Their predictions will determine planting schedules, religious festivals, and even the king's itinerary. What begins as mystical observance gradually reveals its scientific core. These priests are uncovering real astronomical patterns, even if they credit the gods for the discoveries. As you descend through moonlit corridors, you stumble upon something unexpected: graffiti. Beneath an official inscription extolling the temple's grandeur, some anonymous worker has scratched a crude cartoon of a priest with donkey ears. Nearby, a poetic scribble reads, "The gods feast while we grind the grain." These silent protests remind you that even in this holy city, not everyone bought the official narrative. The temple's contradictions stay with you as the night deepens. It's a place of awe-inspiring devotion and cynical exploitation, of genuine learning and blind superstition, of lavish wealth and grinding poverty. The same institution that demands absolute faith also pioneers early banking systems. The priests who claim to speak for gods also preserve humanity's earliest scientific observations. As the final hymns fade into the night, you realize Mesopotamian religion wasn't just about worshipping deities. It was the operating system for an entire civilization. The gods demanded order, and in striving to please them, humans developed writing, mathematics, astronomy, and law. The temple wasn't just where people prayed, it was where they learned to build a world that made sense. And when dawn comes again, the cycle will repeat. Sacrifices will be made, tablets will be pressed, and the great machine of divine bureaucracy will keep turning, laying foundations that will shape human civilization for millennia to come. The metallic temps of molten copper mixes with the acrid scent of burning charcoal as you enter your industrial quarter at dawn. We're stepping into 2900 BC, where the clanging of hammers announces humanity's graduation from the Stone Age to something far more revolutionary. All around you, artisans are conducting what looks like alchemy, turning dull rocks into gleaming metal that will redefine warfare, art, and daily life. A burly smith with forearms like corded bronze catches your eye as he pumps a goatskin bellows, sending sparks dancing across his furnace. He is preparing to pour molten copper into a mold for what will become a ceremonial dagger, its surface already etched with intricate designs waiting to be inlaid with lapis lazuli. The mainstream historical fact. This represents the earliest phase of metallurgy in Mesopotamia, the quirky reality. His first successful creation was likely a simple bead, not a weapon, proving humans have always prioritized jewelry over practicality. Next door, a different kind of magic unfolds at the pottery district. A master craftswoman demonstrates the new fast wheel technology, her hands effortlessly pulling a perfect amphora from a spinning lump of clay in under a minute. Her apprentices watch with a mix of awe and terror, their own lopsided creations stacked in a needs improvement pile. The air is thick with the mineral scent of wet clay, and the occasional frustrated sigh when a vessel collapses. But the real spectacle is happening at the textile workshops. Dozens of women operate complex looms, their fingers flying as they create fabrics so fine they'd make modern designers weep. One particularly ambitious weaver is experimenting with purple dye extracted from rare sea snails, a luxury so extravagant it will eventually become synonymous with royalty. The rhythmic clack-clack of wooden shuttles blends with the occasional yelp when someone snaps a thread. As you explore further, you notice something revolutionary beneath your feet. Proper drainage channels lined with bitumen-soaked bricks. After millennia of wading through sewage, someone finally invented urban plumbing. Though, judging by the occasional aromatic surprise wafting from side alleys, the system still has kinks to work out. The social hierarchy of craftsmanship becomes clear by at the top sit the master metalworkers, their beards oiled and hands stained with patina, bargaining directly with temple officials. Next come the potters and weavers, organized into guild-like groups that control quality and prices. At the bottom, teenage apprentices run errands and get blamed for everything, a tradition that will continue uninterrupted for millennia. The afternoon brings a startling innovation near the docks. A shipbuilder experiments with combining wood planks using bitumen and copper nails rather than just tying reeds together. His prototype looks precarious, but it represents the future of maritime trade. Nearby, a merchant tests a new accounting system using clay tokens sealed in hollow balls, the literal balls that will eventually evolve into contract law. As shadows lengthen, you're drawn to a quiet courtyard where an elderly artisan teaches children how to make glass beads. The process is mesmerizing, winding molten glass around a rod, creating tiny works of art that will be traded across continents. A young coppersmith proudly displays his first successful casting to mixed reviews. An apprentice weaver gets initiated with the traditional face full of dye. And through it all runs the unspoken understanding that their work is changing what it means to be human, turning raw materials into civilization itself. Down at the docks, merchants load ships with ingots of copper, bundles of dyed wool, and crates of delicate glassware, all carefully documented by squinting scribes. A smith mixes molten copper with tin, creating an alloy that will change history. Bronze. The resulting metal sings differently when struck, a clearer, brighter tone that heralds a new age. Nearby, weaponsmiths hammer this superior material into swords that hold their edge and armor that actually stops blows. It's not just better tools, it's the dawn of professional warfare. One particularly fastidious accountant insists on weighing each ingot twice, much to the sailor's annoyance. Their destination. A wealthy merchant's wife parades through the marketplace in jewelry that would make a modern rapper blush, elaborate gold headdresses, lapis lazuli necklaces, and rings heavy enough to double as knuckles. Meanwhile, a poor farmer barters his last goat for a single bronze hoe blade, knowing it will triple his harvest. The gap between haves and have-nots widens visibly with each technological advance. Distant ports from the Indus-Valleyed Anatolia, where Mesopotamian goods fetch premium prices. His hands tremble with age but remain precise, passing on techniques that took a lifetime to master. The day's most poignant moment comes at sunset, when the workers gather to share a communal meal. A group of scribes huddles around a clay tablet, arguing over symbols for new metalworking techniques. Their solution: combine the sign for cop with heaven to represent the newly discovered bronze, a linguistic innovation as important as the alloy itself. Historians still debate whether technological advances drove writing's development or vice versa, but watching these scribes struggle to describe metallurgy suggests it was a chicken and egg situation. The scent of cedar smoke and hot metal lingers in the night air as your workshops take on an almost magical quality. Under flickering oil lamps, while most of the city sleeps, the glassmakers are just hitting their stride, their furnaces glowing like miniature suns in the darkness. You watch as a master artisan blows through a long tube, miraculously forming a molten blob into a delicate vessel. The mainstream historical fact: Mesopotamia was among the first to develop glassmaking. The quirky detail: their earliest pieces were likely accidental byproducts of metalworking, the ancient equivalent of happy little accidents. In a nearby courtyard lit by torches, a different kind of innovation unfolds. The true scale of your industrial might becomes clear at dawn as the city's economic engine roars to life. As morning progresses, you notice something revolutionary taking shape in the metal district. The social impact unfolds before your eyes. A wealthy merchant's wife parades through the marketplace in jewelry that would make a modern rapper blush, elaborate gold headdresses, lapis lazuli necklaces, and rings heavy enough to double as knuckles. Meanwhile, a poor farmer barters his last goat for a single bronze hoe blade, knowing it will triple his harvest. The gap between haves and have-nots widens visibly with each technological advance. Their testing ground is littered with shattered mud bricks and the occasional broken toy. It is a grim reminder that every technological leap has dual uses. The same metallurgy, creating beautiful art, also enables deadlier warfare. In the Pottery Quarter, globalization makes its mark. What began as simple curiosity about shiny rocks has spawned entire industries, rewritten social structures, and connected distant civilizations. And the great engine of progress will keep turning, its fires reflecting in the wide eyes of apprentices, who will one day push the boundaries even further. The clanging hammers and spinning wheels are Uenters making objects, they reshaping humanity as future one innovation at a time. An immigrant craftsman from Elam demonstrates his homeland's technique for making thin-walled vessels, while local artisans adapt the method using Mesopotamian clay. Their disciplined movements reveal the military innovation at Akkad's heart, a professional standing army, paid directly by the palace rather than seasonal farmer conscripts. The mainstream historical fact. This is the world's first military-industrial complex, the quirky detail. Their rations include daily beer allotments. Their clay tablets show repeated attempts to describe metallurgical processes. Take copper... The shiny rock from the eastern mountains... Heat and till. This isn't just another Mesopotamian city-state. What unfolds before you is history's first true empire, a sprawling multi-ethnic domain stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. The air vibrates with a dozen languages as envoys from conquered territories jostle for the king's attention, their exotic perfumes mixing with the earthy aroma of clay tablets fresh from the scribal offices. The birth of scientific writing is messy but determined. The result, a beautiful hybrid style that will spread across the region. Nearby, a trader from distant Dilmun unrolls a sample of Chinese silk. The gasp from local weavers is audible. The afternoon brings a darker innovation. In a guarded courtyard, military engineers test the first bronze siege weapons, crude but deadly catapults that can hurl stones over city walls. As the sun begins to set, you're drawn to a quieter corner where aging craftsmen pass on their secrets. A glassmaker teaches his granddaughter how to layer colored glass, creating patterns that won't be replicated for centuries. A dying metalsmith whispers his alloy ratios to a favored apprentice, making him swear secrecy. These intimate moments capture technology's true transmission, not through tablets or blueprints, but from hand to hand and heart to heart. The night's most fascinating scene occurs in a scribal school, where students struggle with new technical vocabulary. As you leave ERA's workshops under a starry sky, the full impact of these innovations settles over you, and when dawn comes again, the cycle will continue. New alloys will be tested, new techniques attempted. The scent of cedar smoke and roasted lamb greets you as you enter the bustling palace complex of Sargon of Akkad in 2334 BCU. Barely avoid being trampled by a squad of bronze-armored soldiers marching in perfect formation. Sargon's personal guard. Their helmets crested with horsehair dyed the imperial purple. Their disciplined movements reveal the military innovation at Akkad's heart, a professional standing army, paid directly by the palace rather than seasonal farmer conscripts. The mainstream historical fact. This is the world's first military-industrial complex, the quirky detail. Their rations include daily beer allotments. As you approach the throne room, the imperial propaganda machine is in full swing. Court poets recite epic verses of Sargon's divine birth. In a courtyard, bound captives from recent campaigns await their fate, some to be sold as slaves, others to be blinded or maimed as object lessons. The empire's rapid growth demands constant fortification, and the morning air fills with the curses of stonemasons and the rhythmic chant of laborers hauling bricks. One tablet claims Elam sent 300 sheep as tribute, another sighs 250. The chief accountant, Esphase, turns the color of Sumerian wine as he realizes some governor is cooking the book's history as first documented case of bureaucratic fraud. The solution: a surprise audit by imperial inspectors carrying the king's seal. You are about to witness how Sargon's successors managed what no one had before, sustaining an empire beyond a single ruler's lifespan. The quirky detail. Some of the earliest standardized weights are shaped like ducks, possibly because waterfowl were considered honest measurers. Meanwhile, royal messengers sprint between clay model stations, memorizing routes between capitals. The world's first postal service running on human RAM rather than paper. A trembling city envoy presents his people's surrender terms, only to be told they're now a province, not a vassal. The message is clear. Resistance is futile, but compliance might be survivable. One records shipments of Lebanese cedar. Another tallies lapis lazuli from Afghanistan. A particularly frazzled official argues with a merchant about the exchange rate between silver and dried fish. Their meticulous records reveal an empire running on data. Every resource, every subject, every potential rebellion carefully documented. Sculptors chip away at victory steely, showing the king towering over cowering enemies. A Syrian glassblower teaches Akkadian apprentices his techniques while adapting local designs. Elamite metalworkers from Iran collaborate with Sumerian jewelers, creating hybrid styles that will define Mesopotamian art for centuries. Even the humble potter's wheel gets an upgrade, now foot-operated for greater speed and control. It's globalization's first draft, written in clay and bronze. Even the palace bricks bear stamped inscriptions proclaiming Sargon king of the universe in elegant cuneiform. Historians still debate whether Sargon was a visionary unifier or a ruthless warlord, but his PR team was undoubtedly one. The bureaucratic machinery of empire unfolds in a vast hall where scribes process tribute from across the realm. The afternoon takes you to the imperial workshops where artisans blend conquered cultures into something new. As shadows lengthen, you witness the empire's dark underside. Dawn breaks over a card with the sound of hammers on stone as workers expand the city walls again. In the palace archives, a crisis unfolds as scribes discover discrepancies between provincial reports. The mainstream historical fact becomes clear. Empires require systems, not just strongmen. The quirky detail. Some of the earliest standardized weights are shaped like ducks, possibly because waterfowl were considered honest measurers. Meanwhile, royal messengers sprint between clay-modeled stations, memorizing routes between capitals. The world's first postal service running on human RAM rather than paper. Sargon's daughter Enheduanna, the empire's high priestess, composes hymns praising both Sumerian and Akkadian gods. Equally, her poetry cleverly merges traditions, declaring Inanna and Ishtar a one theological diplomacy that keeps conquered cities compliant. Not everyone's convinced. One elderly priest mutters about watering down the old ways. As midday heat shimmers over the ziggurat, you observe the religious balancing act required to rule diverse peoples. Sargon's grandson, Naram-Sin, studies maps, not of conquest, but of infrastructure. Planned roads, canals, and way stations to bind the empire together. His advisors debate whether to invest in military expansion or internal development, a timeless imperial dilemma. The decision, both, naturally funded by yet another campaign against troublesome mountain tribes. A Phoenician barters Tyrian purple dye for Babylonian barley. Focus, Ed barks the Omia, his beard quivering with frustration. The sign for barley angles left, not right. All around, dozens of students hunch over their tablets, they're stilly moving in nervous unison. The mainstream historical fact. This Aduba represents humanity's first systematic attempt at mass education. The quirky reality. Their most preserved texts include everything from advanced math to the ancient equivalent of I will not talk in class written 100 times. What began as one city-state's ambition has become something unprecedented. Multilingual entity held together by administration and military might. The systems being forged here, standardized laws, centralized bureaucracy, cultural assimilation, will become templates for every empire that follows, from Rome to Britain. It's 2000 BCE, and across Mesopotamia, clay tablets are replacing swords as the true instruments of power. You're about to witness how knowledge became institutionalized in the world's first schools, places where young minds were shaped as deliberately as the clay they wrote upon. Engineers test siege towers that can be disassembled and rebuilt, crucial for campaigns far from home. The empire doesn't sleep, because empires can't afford to, and though Sargon's dynasty will eventually fall, the idea he launched, that diverse peoples could be united under one rule, will outlast his civilization by millennia. A captured Gutian mercenary teaches mountain warfare tactics to Akkadian officers. It's clear this empire expands not just through brute force, but by absorbing the best ideas from every culture it encounters. A Hittite arms dealer demonstrates new alloy recipes to imperial weapons. Even the food stalls serve fusion cuisine. You spot something resembling an early kebab being stuffed into Sumerian. The afternoon reveals the empire's economic engine. In the merchant quarter, Traders from across the realm haggle under standardized weights and measures. Military innovation continues apace in the training yards. Young recruits practice with composite bows that outrange traditional weapons. As sunset paints the administrative buildings gold, you glimpse the empire's fragility. A horrid scribe updates contingency tablets listing emergency grain stores and militia collapse. Another documents omens about potential rebellions. The very systems enabling imperial control also reveal its vulnerabilities. Every conquered people is a potential rebel, every province a possible breakaway state. The night's most telling moment comes in the royal chambers. As you walk the moonlit battlements, the scale of this experiment hits you. When dawn comes again, the work continues uninterrupted. Couriers depart with fresh orders. Accountants tally new tribute. Recruits drill in the yards. The scent of cedar sawdust and drying ink fills the air as you enter the bustling scribal quarter of Nipper, where the world's first formal education system is in full swing. A sharp crack echoes through the courtyard as a teacher's rod meets an inattentive student's knuckles. Focused, it barks the Omir, his beard quivering with frustration. The sign for barley angles left, not right. All around, dozens of students hunch over their tablets, their stilly moving in nervous unison. In the middle, the middling pupils grind away at vocabulary lists, and in the corner, the repeat offenders, including one hapless boy on his third attempt at mastering the 600-plus cuneiform signs. One particularly unfortunate boy nurses blisters from gripping his stylus too tightly. Advanced students remain after hours to debate philosophy, mathematics, and the meaning of those strange new astronomical omens. The priests keep recording. Their hushed conversations reveal minds grappling with concepts far beyond basic literacy. The school's remedy, a poultice of licorice and honey, applied by a long-suffering teaching assistant who clearly didn't sign up for medical duties. His latest tablet reads, "I was late because my dog ate my homework tablet," proving some excuses are truly timeless. The mainstream historical fact. This Idabar represents humanity's first systematic attempt at mass education. One shelf holds early medical texts, describing symptoms and treatments. Another contains star charts so precise they'll remain useful for centuries. Most touching are the textbook tablets showing teacher S examples on one side and a student S shaky attempts on the reverse. The ancient version of red pen corrections. Between official exercises, students scribble personal notes, complaints about teachers, crude drawings, and even early math jokes. Historians still debate whether these graffiti represent rebellion or just normal childhood silliness preserved by chance. The mainstream historical fact. Mesopotamian scribal schools preserved knowledge across generations. The quirky detail, their math problems included calculating beer distribution for palace parties and the division of inheritance, including scenarios like, what if the widow the quirky reality. Their most preserved texts include everything from advanced math to the ancient equivalent of I will not talk in class written 100 times. The school's daily routine unfolds with military precision. At dawn, students practice basic signs by copying proverbs. By mid-morning they advance to administrative documents, rental contracts, marriage records, and enough barley receipts to make your eyes glaze over. After a lunch of bread and weak beer, the curriculum turns to literature, copying passages from the Epic of Gilgamesh with varying degrees of success. One tablet preserves a student's frustrated doodle in the margin. Perhaps history as first recorded I hate school sketch. The social hierarchy within these walls fascinates you. At the top sit the advanced students, their clean robes and confident postures, marking them as future bureaucrats. As you examine the school's textbooks, you discover they're actually recycled tablets, the ancient equivalent of scratch paper. The physicality of scribal training becomes painfully clear by afternoon. Many students massage their aching hands. Scribe's cramp was a genuine occupational hazard. As evening oil lamps flicker to life, the school transforms into something more profound than a vocational training center. If a man measures a field but the boundaries shift with the flood, does the original measurement still hold? How many workers are needed to build a ziggurat if 10 men can lay 100 bricks per day? Why did the gods permit evil scribes to prosper while good ones starve? These aren't just practical questions. They're the birth pangs of abstract thought, of philosophy emerging from bureaucracy. The school's library, really just a carefully organized collection of clay tablets, offers glimpses into an astonishing intellectual world. One shelf holds early medical texts describing symptoms and treatments. Another contains star charts so precise they'll remain useful for centuries. Most touching are the textbook tablets showing teacher-s examples on one side and a student's shaky attempts on the reverse, the ancient version of red pen corrections. The social impact of this education system becomes clear as you observe graduation day. Successful students receive their diplomas, inscribed cylinder seals that will open doors to lucrative careers. His tongue pokes from the corner of his mouth in concentration, just as students do today. We're stepping into 1900 BC, where commerce isn't just an activity. It's the lifeblood pumping through Mesopotamia's veins. Nearby, a textile trader from distant Dilmun unfurls bolts of dyed wool so vibrant they seem to glow. The designer labels of their day. The luxury aisle displays lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, carved ivory from Syria, and amber that traveled all the way from the Baltic. The everyday goods section overflows with pottery, tools, and reed baskets. And in a shady corner, the black market deals happen, whispered negotiations for stolen temple artifacts and discounted sacrificial animals of questionable origin. The mainstream historical fact. Mesopotamia developed the world's first complex market economy. The quirky reality. Their accounting includes notes like received 30 jars of honey. Note, 5 jars suspiciously watery, proving fraud is as old as commerce itself. All around you, the world's first capitalist economy unfolds with a sophistication that would make modern traders blink. The air vibrates with the clink of silver shekels, the haggling of merchants, and the occasional outraged shriek when someone spots a pickpocket. The stylus moves, the clay yields, and another piece of humanity's story is preserved. One careful wedge at a time. Their families arrive bearing gifts for the teacher. One proud father weeps openly as his son, the first literate member of their lineage, demonstrates his skills to assembled relatives. But the night's most revealing moment comes when the Omiya privately counsels a struggling student. Instead of punishment, he offers unexpected wisdom. Not every tablet must be perfect to be useful. These scribal schools weren't just teaching cuneiform. They were creating and preserving civilization itself. Every law code, every epic poem, every astronomical observation that would pass down through the ages existed because generations of students sat in rooms like this, aching hands and all, pressing knowledge into clay. The student, who's been battling a stutter that makes oral recitations difficult, receives permission to focus on accounting rather than poetry. It's a rare glimpse of pedagogical flexibility in an otherwise rigid system. As you leave the Ediba, in the quiet hours before dawn, the full weight of this innovation settles upon you. The first light of morning finds a lone student already at work, his lamp burning low as he struggles to perfect a complex legal phrase. The scent of roasting sesame seeds and crushed coriander greets you as you enter your bustling marketplace. At high noon, you barely dodge a donkey cart loaded with copper ingots from its driver shouting prices at passing merchants. As you weave through the crowd, the marketplace's organization becomes clear. The luxury aisle displays lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, carved ivory from Syria, and amber that traveled all the way from the Baltic. The everyday goods section overflows with pottery, tools, and reed baskets. And in a shady corner, the black market deals happen, whispered negotiations for stolen temple artifacts and discounted sacrificial animals of questionable origin. The true genius reveals itself at the banking stalls. Moneylenders weigh silver rings on exquisitely balanced scales, their fingers moving with the precision of concert pianists. One particularly fastidious banker argues with a merchant about interest. Rates 20% annually is completely reasonable for an unsecured loan. Nearby, a farmer pawns his daughter's dowry jewelry to buy seed grain, his face a mask of reluctant calculation. His dramatic recitation has merchants tossing silver into his bowl at particularly thrilling moments. The quirky detail. Their Yelp-style reviews survive on clay tablets, including one scathing critique of a taverness watery beer, and rude servers that could have been written yesterday. Even service quality complaints have ancient roots. Nearby, a dice game turns rowdy as players argue over betting rules. Archaeological evidence shows gambling was both popular and frequently outlawed throughout Mesopotamian history. Ships from Aluha unload exotic, carnelian, and peacock feathers under torchlight. Their captains huddle with local merchants, comparing notes on monsoon winds and pirate activity. The earliest known maritime insurance negotiations, one sailor complains about customs officials inventing new fees, proving some bureaucratic frustrations are truly timeless. Historians still debate whether Mesopotamia's interest rates stimulated growth or trapped the poor in endless debt cycles. The afternoon brings a startling innovation. What might be history's first futures market? A merchant pre-sells next season's wool harvest to a textile dealer, both parties swearing solemn oaths to honor the contract regardless of price fluctuations. Their agreement is recorded on a tablet, witnessed by no less than 6 officials. The ancient equivalent of notarized documents. Lanterns flicker to life, illuminating stalls selling prepared foods to weary workers. The aroma of grilled fish and garlic flatbread mixes with the earthy scent of beer being poured from communal jars. This is when ER's service economy shines. Cooks, entertainers, and comfort providers catering to those with coins to spare. Another trader speculates on date harvests, buying up storage rights to warehouse space along the canals. As you explore further, globalization's early impacts become visible. A Hittite metalsmith demonstrates new alloy techniques to local craftsmen, while an Egyptian physician hawks guaranteed fertility potions. Even the food stalls serve fusion cuisine. You spot something resembling an early kebab being stuffed into Sumerian. The constant exchange of goods, ideas, and microbes shapes Ur into a cosmopolitan hub, where cultures collide and merge. The setting sun paints Ur's marketplace in golden hues as evening commerce takes on a different character. A particularly lively crowd gathers around a storyteller performing the Epic of Gilgamesh. Mesopotamia's equivalent of a blockbuster movie night. The mainstream historical fact emerges. This vibrant night market represents the world's first consumer culture. As night deepens, you're drawn to the docks, where moonlit commerce continues uninterrupted. Ships from Meluha unload exotic, carnelian, and peacock feathers under torchlight. Their captains huddle with local merchants, comparing notes on monsoon winds and pirate activity. The earliest known maritime insurance negotiations. Dozens of clerks inventory goods under flickering oil lamps, their tablets recording everything from grain humidity levels to textile dye lots. One particularly meticulous inspector rejects an entire shipment of copper ingots for being 2% underweight, the ancient equivalent of quality control. Their record-keeping is so thorough we know exactly how many bricks were used to build your cigarette. The cycle continues uninterrupted, as it has for centuries, and will for centuries more. As you watch the first transactions of the new day, a fisherman selling his catch, a merchant ordering next season's wool, you realize this isn't just buying and selling. It's 1800 BCE, and the New Year's Akitu festival is in full swing, a 12-day explosion of color, noise, and celebration that would put modern carnivals to shame. Around you, the city is transformed into a giant playground, where social norms are temporarily appended. Slaves order around masters, priests perform. Scandalous satires of the gods, and the normally rigid class system dissolves in a haze of beer and music. It's the heartbeat of civilization itself, pulsing across millennia to markets still operating on principles invented here in ER's dusty squares. One sailor complains about customs officials inventing new fees, proving some bureaucratic frustrations are truly timeless. The true complexity of this economy becomes clear at the warehouse district. A young scribe assists his blind father in running a spice stall, developing an intricate system of smells and textures to identify products. Their innovation, early accessibility accommodations, speaks to commerce's power to drive social adaptation. Nearby, a woman negotiates the sale of her woven textiles without a male guardian, a relative independence rare in later periods. The social impacts of this commercial revolution unfold before your eyes. A wealthy merchant's wife parades through the night market in jewelry that would make modern rappers envious. Elaborate gold headdresses, lapis lazuli necklaces, and rings heavy enough to double as knuckles. Meanwhile, a laborer counts his meager coins, deciding between a new sandal or an extra ration of beer. The wealth gap yawns visibly in the lantern light. In a quiet corner, something remarkable is happening. The dawn finds the marketplace already stirring again. Bakers fire their ovens for morning. Farmers arrive with fresh produce. Money changers set up their scales. The cycle continues uninterrupted, as it has for centuries and will for centuries more. As you watch the first transactions of the new day, a fisherman selling his catch, a merchant ordering next season's wool, you realize this isn't just buying and selling. It's the heartbeat of civilization itself, pulsing across millennia to markets, still operating on principles invented here in airs. The scent of roasting sesame seeds and fermenting date wine fills the air as you push through the crowded festival grounds of Babylon. It's 1800 BC, and the New Year's Akitu festival is in full swing. A 12-day explosion of color, noise, and celebration that would put modern carnivals to shame. Around you, the city is transformed into a giant playground where social norms are temporarily appended. Slaves order around masters. Behind them, a float carrying musicians plucking lyres and pounding frame drums drowns out all conversation. You catch snippets of a popular ballad about Ishtar's descent to the underworld, though the lyrics seem to have acquired some decidedly raunchy new verses for the occasion. The mainstream historical fact: the Akitu festival renewed cosmic order through controlled chaos. In family compounds, children play with terracotta rattles and pull-wheeled wooden animals on strings, the world's first documented toys. Teenagers sneak off to moonlit courtyards where lyre music sets the mood for flirtation. Even the elderly participate, telling slightly different versions of the flood story that grow more dramatic with each jar of date wine consumed. The quirky detail: temple records show budget allocations for 20 barrels of strong beer for ritual reversal ceremonies, essentially an ancient expense account for getting responsibly wasted. Priests perform scandalous satires of the gods, and the normally rigid class system dissolves in a haze of beer and music. In the wrestling arena, oiled competitors grapple to the roar of the crowd, their moves combining sport and ritual. The referee periodically interrupts matches to interpret the fighters' sweat patterns as divine omens. Nearby, a gambling den does brisk business with dice made from sheep knuckles, while a particularly daring game involves guessing which clay cup hides a scorpion. Historians still debate whether these games were purely recreational or had deeper religious significance, but the stacks of silver rings changing hands suggest plenty of attendees didn't care either way. A procession of acrobats tumbles past, their oiled bodies glistening under the midday sun as they form human pyramids 5 levels high. The high priestess, playing the role of Inanna, emerges from the ziggurat on a golden litter carried by bare-chested priests. Her jeweled headdress towers 3 feet high, and her robes shimmer with hundreds of lapis lazuli beads. The crowd parts as she processes toward the enthroned king, who will play Dumuzi in their symbolic union. Just as the tension peaks, a drunk noble vomits spectacularly on a city official's sandals. No one seems surprised. Tablets describe this as an annual tradition where someone inevitably disgraces themselves before the gods. As you explore the festival grounds, the variety of entertainment as the afternoon brings the festival's most anticipated event, the sacred marriage ritual. As torches flicker to life across Babylon, the festival takes a more intimate turn. In family compounds, children play with terracotta rattles and pull-wheeled wooden animals on strings, the world's first documented toys. Teenagers sneak off to moonlit courtyards where lyre music sets the mood for flirtation. Some of the best preserved artifacts are board games, including the Royal Game of Yore, complete with graffiti where ancient players curse their bad luck in the margins. A group of merchants nearby plays a particularly intense round, their ivory game pieces clacking across inlaid wood boards as they bet increasingly outrageous sums. Even the elderly participate, telling slightly different versions of the flood story that grow more dramatic with each jar of date wine consumed. The mainstream historical fact: Mesopotamians pioneered many entertainment forms we still recognize. The quirky reality: it's 1775 BC, and around you pulses a system so efficient it would make modern logistics companies weep with envy. Dozens of runners kneel on reed mats, having their feet treated with a pungent salve of juniper oil and beeswax after completing their routes. Station masters bark orders, while scribes record arrivals and departures with military precision. This isn't just mail delivery, it's the circulatory system of an empire, carrying everything from royal decrees to merchant complaints at speeds unmatched until the Roman Empire. Thousands of oil lamps float down the Euphrates in honor of the water gods, their flickering lights reflecting like stars in the dark water. For this one night, the rigid social order that normally defines Mesopotamian life softens. A slave may share a drink with a noble, a foreign trader might dance with a priestess, and everyone pretends not to notice the king laughing at a commoner's dirty joke. At the palace, a different kind of performance unfolds. Shadow puppets act out satirical takes on current events. The king's tax policies get particular scrutiny, though always framed as a story about a foolish ruler from far away. The court poet performs a new work praising the city's greatness, though he occasionally stumbles over lines he clearly wrote that afternoon. Meanwhile, in the kitchens, cooks prepare what will become history's first documented food fight when a disagreement over lamb seasoning escalates spectacularly. The festival's true magic reveals itself at midnight. As dawn breaks over bleary-eyed revelers, the city begins the careful process of reassembling its social hierarchy. The slaves return to their duties, the priests wipe the satire paint from their faces, and the accountants tally up the festival's expenses. But something intangible lingers in the air, the memory of those fleeting days when all of Babylon, from lowest laborer to highest priest, remembered they were human before they were subjects. The scent of hot bitumen and sweating couriers fills the air as you enter the nerve center of Mesopotamia's communication network, the royal messenger station of Mari. It's 1775 BCE, and around you pulses a system so efficient it would make modern logistics companies weep with envy. Dozens of runners kneel on reed mats, having their feet treated with a pungent salve of juniper oil and beeswax after completing their routes. Station masters bark orders while scribes record arrivals and departures with military precision. This isn't just mail delivery, it's the circulatory system of an empire, carrying everything from royal decrees to merchant complaints at speeds unmatched until the Roman Empire. A commotion erupts as a dust-covered runner stumbles in, his leather message pouch still strapped securely across his chest. As a Phoenician vessel unloads cedar logs, his captain hands a sealed clay letter to the harbor master, proof that Mesopotamia's Pony Express had a maritime wing. The tablets travel in waterproof bitumen-lined boxes, some bearing annotations like "keep away from bilge water" in multiple languages. Urgent from he gasps before collapsing onto a waiting bench. Many tablets include shipping instructions like place between wool bales to prevent cracking, ancient equivalents of fragile stickers. Maps painted on plaster walls show routes color-coded by delivery speed, red for urgent messages, blue for standard trade updates. In their pounding footsteps and the creaking of merchant ships, you hear the heartbeat of civilization itself, the relentless flow of information that turns scattered cities into the world's first interconnected world. A scheduling tablet details rotations, ensuring no runner covers the same route twice in a month, preventing familiarity with local conspirators. Most remarkably, a service guarantee steely promises 190-mile delivery in 24 hours, or your money back. A scribe compares the seal impression against a reference tablet of authorized signatures, possibly history's first security protocol. Another scribe checks the tablet for tampering marks, before carefully transcribing the cuneiform onto a fresh clay copy for the archives. The message itself is mundane, a request for additional troops to guard a copper shipment, but the efficiency of its handling reveals why Mari's network became legendary. The station master cuts the pouch free with a bronze knife, revealing a clay tablet sealed with the distinctive cylinder seal of Mari's northern governor. In a back room, a cryptography specialist demonstrates how sensitive messages are hidden inside hollow clay balls. Another shows how to detect forged seals by the angle of the cylinder's rotation. Most ingenious of all are the tamper-evident tablets, wrapped in clay envelopes that must be broken to read, with the sender's seal stamped across the breakpoint. Historians still debate whether these systems developed for practical security or royal paranoia, but their effectiveness is undeniable. The mainstream historical fact: the Mari archives preserve over 20,000 such letters. The quirky detail: many include postscripts, like "tell a cook his fish recipe was terrible," alongside state secrets. As you observe the decoding process, the system's sophistication unfolds. The afternoon brings a lesson in ancient cybersecurity. Dusk falls on Mari's docks, where the communication network's most unexpected players hold court. Merchant ships, the mainstream historical fact. Merchant vessels served as unofficial postal carriers. The quirky reality: midnight finds you in the archives, where the station's true genius reveals itself. As dawn's first light touches the docks, a new shift of runners, their pouches carrying everything from divorce petitions to recipes for beer. In their pounding footsteps and the creaking of merchant ships, you hear the heartbeat of civilization itself, the relentless flow of information that turned scattered cities into the world's first interconnected world. The scent of myrrh and crushed rose petals hangs heavy in the air as you enter the royal palace of Mari, where diplomacy has been elevated to an art form. It's 1775 BC, and you're about to witness Mesopotamia, this intricate web of international relations that stretches from the Mediterranean coast to the Persian Gulf. This is high diplomacy, where every gift, every gesture carries layers of meaning. A Babylonian envoy argues for preferential trade terms, citing generations of friendship. His counterpart from Yamhad counters with veiled threats about shifting alliances, while a diplomat from Kotna sips his wine with the practiced calm of someone playing both sides. The king of Mari presides over this dance with weary amusement, knowing his city's wealth depends on balancing these competing interests. The mainstream historical fact. The Mari archives contain over 20,000 tablets documenting international correspondence. The quirky detail. Many include complaints about inferior gift exchanges, like one king whining that the lapis lazuli he received was barely blue at all. The marble floors echo with the footsteps of ambassadors in exotic garb, their gold and lapis lazuli jewelry clinking softly as they maneuver through the political chess game of the Bronze Age. A commotion erupts near the throne room as an Elamite delegation presents gifts, including a caged lion that promptly relieves itself on the polished stones, much to the horror of the cleaning staff. Scribes work in shifts to maintain correspondence in Akkadian, the lingua franca of the age. Translators huddle over tablets, debating how to render idiomatic expressions from distant languages. A harried archivist organizes treaties by region and urgency, with a special section for complaints about wandering nomads. Historians still debate whether this system maintained peace or simply managed conflicts, but the sheer volume of paperwork suggests bureaucracy has always been diplomacy's silent partner. As you observe the day's negotiations, the sophistication of Bronze Age statecraft becomes clear. The palace's diplomatic quarter reveals the daily machinery of international relations. Scribes work in shifts to maintain correspondence in Akkadian, the lingua franca of the age. Translators huddle over tablets, debating how to render idiomatic expressions from distant languages. Here lies the famous Peace of Equals between Mari and Babylon, its tablets still sealed with the original cylinder seal impressions. Nearby, a more troubling document records the terms of surrender for a conquered city, including the chilling line, "Their children shall be raised in our ways." The archivist handles each tablet with reverence, knowing these fragile rectangles of clay hold the fragile peace of nations. A harried archivist organizes treaties by region and urgency, with a special section for complaints about wandering nomads. Ambassadors' wives exchange gossip and recipes while discreetly probing for information. Young nobles flirt dangerously across political divides, their dalliances carefully noted by observant servants. Even the musicians play politically selected tunes, avoiding melodies associated with any one kingdom. It's a delicate ballet where every gesture carries weight, and the wrong word could unravel months of negotiations. Historians still debate whether this system maintained peace or simply managed conflicts, but the sheer volume of paperwork suggests bureaucracy has always been diplomacy's silent partner. As afternoon shadows lengthen, you re-granted access to the royal archives, a climate-controlled chamber where treaties are stored in labeled clay jars. The social aspects of diplomacy unfold in the palace gardens during evening receptions. The scent of night-blooming jasmine mixes with torch smoke as Mari's diplomatic machinations continue well past sunset. In a secluded courtyard, two ambassadors from rival kingdoms share wine away from prying eyes, a secret meeting that could reshape regional alliances. Their conversation, recorded by a hidden scribe at the king's request, reveals the gritty reality behind the flowery official correspondence. "Tell your king we'll withdraw from the border towns if he stops supporting our rebels, and the timber shipment, 50 cedar logs per moon, but we want the price in silver, not grain this time." This is diplomacy's underbelly, the deals made in shadows that contradict public proclamations. The mainstream historical fact. The Mari archives contain numerous back-channel communications. The quirky detail. Many include personal asides like "please send more of that excellent wine" between lines of state secrets. The next morning brings a ceremonial gift exchange that's anything but casual. The Babylonian delegation presents a solid gold statue of their goddess Ishtar, carefully calculated to outshine last season's gift from Aleppo. Young scribes memorize genealogies of foreign dynasties and the dietary restrictions of various gods. Advanced students role-play negotiations, their teachers throwing curveballs like simulated rebellions or bad harvests. One particularly promising diplomat in training nails the perfect response to an insult about his king's lineage, polite enough to maintain decorum, sharp enough to show he's no pushover. Mary's artisans have prepared reciprocal gifts, exquisitely crafted furniture inlaid with ivory, each piece designed to showcase specific regional resources. The clauses cover everything from her jewelry allowance to the succession rights of future children, but the real masterpiece is the equally binding but completely separate tablet outlining secret military commitments, a Bronze Age version of classified in. Historians still debate whether these arranged royal marriages actually cemented peace, or just created more complicated family dramas. One nervous apprentice polishes the same table leg repeatedly, terrified of damaging what amounts to a year's worth of royal revenue. As you observe the palace's diplomatic training program, the system's sophistication deepens. The afternoon's most revealing moment comes in the treaty room, where scribes draft a marriage alliance between Mari's princess and a distant prince. The clauses cover everything from her jewelry allowance to the succession rights of future children, but the real masterpiece is the equally binding but completely separate tablet outlining secret military commitments, a Bronze Age version of classified in. Historians still debate whether these arranged royal marriages actually cemented peace, or just created more complicated family dramas. As dusk falls, crisis erupts when news arrives of assassinated ambassadors on the trade road. The diplomatic corps springs into action. Condolence letters are drafted, investigators dispatched, and contingency plans reviewed. The king must decide between retaliating or accepting the insult. His solution: it's 2050 BC, and you're about to witness Mesopotamian religion at its most spectacular. The New Year's festival, when gods walk among mortals and the fate of the cosmos hangs in the balance. The air thrums with the rhythmic beat of temple drums and the lowing of bulls being decorated for sacrifice, their horns gilded with gold leaf that catches the morning sun. A magnificently ambiguous proclamation that essentially says, "We re-watching the situation closely," proving political non-answers have ancient roots. His alabaster face seems to watch you disapprovingly as he's borne toward his sacred marriage chamber. This is more than ritual. It's a cosmic reboot button for Mesopotamian civilization. The mainstream historical fact: the Akitu festival renewed the universe's contract for another year. The quirky the high priest had to slap the king hard enough to make his ears ring. Divine humility administered via holy. Their saddlebags contain carefully balanced gifts, meticulously drafted treaties, and private letters full of veiled threats and promises. Some will travel for months to deliver these messages, unaware they're participating in something revolutionary, the world's first international system of states, complete with all its brilliance, hypocrisy, and fragile hope for peace. The night's final act unfolds in the royal chambers, where the king reviews intelligence reports from his network of informants. Some are professional diplomats, others merchants doubling as spies, a few even disgruntled members of foreign courts. The messengers racing along dusty roads, the scribes laboring over carefully worded tablets, the translators bridging cultural divides. Together they maintain a fragile international order. The treaties being negotiated tonight will determine whether farmers can harvest in peace or whether fathers will bury sons slain in battle. Their tablets reveal everything from troop movements to a rival king's embarrassing digestive problems. The information is carefully cross-referenced and weighted for reliability, an ancient version of modern intelligence analysis. As you leave the palace in the pre-dawn hours, the full scope of this diplomatic web becomes clear. When dawn's first light touches the ziggurat, a new caravan of diplomats already prepares for departure. The scent of hot sand and myrrh greets you as you approach the towering ziggurat of where the boundary between earth and heaven grows thin. You barely avoid being trampled by a procession of shaven-headed priests carrying the statue of the moon god, on a golden barge. His alabaster face seems to watch you disapprovingly as he's borne toward his sacred marriage chamber. This is more than ritual. It's the cosmic reboot button for Mesopotamian civilization. The mainstream historical fact. The Akachu festival renewed the universe's contract for another year. The high priest had to slap the king hard enough to make his ears ring. Divine humility administered via Holy Spirit. As you enter the temple complex, the preparations unfold with military precision. In the purification chambers, priests scrub themselves with special salts while reciting incantations against demonic interference. Temple records show expenses for festival of fools, costumes, and wine for ritual. Drunkenness, proving even solemn occasions needed budget lines for party supplies. The high priest alone ascends to the shrine where Nana's statue resides, carrying a ceremonial breakfast that will awaken the god for the new year. Farmers purchase amulets blessed during the rites to protect their fields. Merchants sell miniature ziggurat models as souvenirs. This wasn't just pageantry, it was the operating system of Mesopotamian civilization rebooting itself. Your returns to normal, but changed. The new year has been properly inaugurated, the gods appeased, and the people reminded of their place in the universe. And high above the city, Nana's alabaster eyes watch impassively, awaiting next year's renewal of the divine contract that keeps the world turning. The rituals reaffirmed social hierarchies through their temporary suspension, maintained cosmic order through controlled chaos, and distributed sacred authority between kings and priests through carefully balanced humiliation. Even the temple prostitutes report record business, their services considered especially auspicious during the festival. One entrepreneurial brewer sells Nana's blessing beer at triple the normal price, claiming the yeast was sanctified during the ceremonies. What exactly occurs remains a mystery. The few tablets describing it are frustratingly vague. But when the priest descends at dawn, his face is transfigured with either divine ecstasy or sleep deprivation. In the kitchens, bakers prepare 1001 sacred loaves. Meanwhile, temple accountants conduct last-minute audits of divine assets, because even gods need their inventories balanced before the cosmic reset. The festival's dramatic climax approaches as the king arrives, his royal robes deliberately tattered to show humility before the gods. He is led through a ritual humiliation that would make reality TV producers blush. Stripped of his regalia, forced to kneel before the high priest, and made to swear he hasn't neglected his divine duties. The actual proceedings occur behind heavy curtains, but the feasting afterward is very public. As you watch nobles gorge on roasted oxen and date wine, you realize this isn't just religion, it's political theater, agricultural insurance, and social control rolled into one bizarre package. Only after this spiritual audit does the priest return his symbols of office. Along with that, ceremonial slap historians still debate whether it was symbolic or genuinely painful. The carefully choreographed rituals give way to something more primal, a carnivalesque atmosphere where social norms are temporarily inverted. Slaves order around masters, women mock men in bawdy songs, and a group of priests performs a shockingly accurate satire of the king's council meetings. This controlled chaos serves a sacred purpose, releasing societal tension so the cosmic order can be renewed. The afternoon's most surreal moment comes during the sacred marriage rite, where the king symbolically mates with the goddess Inanna to ensure fertility for the land. As torches flicker to life across Ur's sacred precincts, the festival takes an unexpectedly chaotic turn. The mainstream historical fact. These rituals represent some of humanity's earliest recorded cathartic traditions. The quirky detail. At midnight, the most secretive rite begins atop the zig. The festival's economic impact becomes clear as morning markets reopen. As you observe the cleanup crews gathering mountains of date pits and broken pottery, the festival's deeper purpose comes into focus. When the last drunken reveler stumbles home, and the final accounting tablet is pressed recording the festival's expenses, your returns to normal, but changed. The new year has been properly inaugurated, the gods appeased, and the people reminded of their place in the universe. And high above the city, Nana's alabaster eyes watch impassively, awaiting next year's renewal of the divine contract that keeps the world turning. It's 1750 BCE, and the once peaceful Mesopotamian city-states have birthed something new. Professional warfare. Around you, recruits train with a discipline that would make modern drill sergeants nod in approval, their oiled muscles gleaming under the punishing sun. This isn't just another army, it's the world's first military-industrial complex, where warfare has been refined into both an art and a science. A squad returns from patrol wearing the flayed skins of enemy scouts over their armor, a grisly tactic straight from the How to Terrify Your Neighbor's playbook. Torch-bearing sentries take up positions on the battlements, while scouts smear their faces with ash for nighttime stealth. In the command tent, generals huddle over clay maps showing enemy positions, moving carved stone markers like pieces in the world's deadliest board game. Their commander coolly explains, "This is more efficient than actual fighting, as many villagers surrender at the sight alone." It's a chilling reminder that shock and awe tactics aren't modern inventions. The scent of crushed coriander and hot bronze fills your nostrils as you enter the military barracks of Hammurabi's Babylon. The tactics, strategies, and logistics developed here will echo through history, from Roman legions to modern armies. It's 1755 BCE, and the air hums with anticipation as scribes, priests, and nobles gather to witness the unveiling of what will become one of humanity's most influential legal codes. The polished stone steely stands taller than a man, its surface gleaming with freshly carved cuneiform that will shape justice systems for millennia to come. And when the last sword is cleaned and the final casualty tablet pressed into clay, one truth remains. Mesopotamia didn't just invent civilization, it invented the terrible art of defending it by force. The drill master, a grizzled veteran missing 2 fingers, barks orders with the cadence of someone who's trained generations of warriors. Bronze flashes in the sun as formations collide with a sound like 10,000 pots breaking. At the base of the monument, a young scribe reads aloud the Noemoto prologue. Anu, an Enlil named me, Hammurabi, the exalted prince, to bring about the rule of righteousness in the land. The mainstream historical fact. This represents one of the earliest comprehensive legal systems. The quirky detail. The code includes specific compensation for injuries caused by collapsing beer barrels, apparently an occupational hazard in ancient Babylon. The innovations you witnessed in training now play out in life and death reality. Rotating lines of fresh troops, tactical retreats that lure enemies into kill zones, even primitive smoke screens using burning reeds. Amid the chaos, medics drag the wounded to rear area stations, where opium-laced wine eases their pain. Their spy reports included observations like enemy king's new wife, very beautiful, parcel distraction, proving some intelligence gathering never changes. A hand-picked squad slips through the darkness to sabotage an enemy's irrigation system, ancient economic warfare at its finest. Their success means drought will do what swords couldn't, forcing surrender without massive loss of life. It's brutal but brilliant. Like much of Mesopotamian, blacksmiths hammer out standardized arrowheads by the hundred, their forges burning day and night. Engineers test siege ramps that can be disassembled and rebuilt, the ancient equivalent of modular military tech. Hundreds of laborers and donkeys maintain a flow of food, weapons, and medical supplies stretching back to Babylon. The quartermaster's tablets track every arrow, every loaf of bread with terrifying precision. This isn't just an army, it's a self-contained city on the move, and its stomach is as important as its sword arm. Even the medical corps impresses, with healers practicing trepanation on melons. Historians still debate whether Hammurabi's military success came from innovation or simply better logistics, but watching these preparations, you suspect it's both. Shields up, spears level, advance at walking pace. The mainstream historical fact. Hammurabi's military reforms created standing armies that didn't disband after harvest season. The quirky detail. Their rations included daily beer allotments, 2 liters per soldier, because nothing says military discipline like tipsy spearmen. A trumpet blast sends soldiers scrambling into formation, their bronze scale armor clinking like deadly wind chimes. As you explore the camp, the sophistication of Bronze Age warfare unfolds. The afternoon brings a startling demonstration of psychological warfare. The setting sun paints Babylon's walls blood red as the army prepares for night operations. The mainstream historical fact. Mesopotamians pioneered many military strategies still used today. The quirky detail. As midnight approaches, you witness something revolutionary. The world's first documented special ops mission. Dawn reveals the army's true secret weapon, its supply train. When battle finally comes, it's both horrifying and mesmerizing. As the smoke clears, you'll realize this military machine's true legacy. The scent of cedar oil and crushed lapis lazuli greets you as you enter the royal palace of Babylon, where King Hammurabi is about to make history with a chisel and a slab of black dye. You edge closer through the crowd of bemused onlookers, merchants rubbing their necks at the thought of price controls, wives eyeing the divorce clauses, physicians nervously noting malpractice penalties. At the base of the monument, a young scribe reads aloud the now immortal prologue. Anu and Enlil named me Hammurabi, the exalted prince, to bring about the rule of righteousness in the land. If a man puts out the eye of another man, his eye shall be put out. The crowd murmurs at this famous lex talionis principle, but the next line surprises. If he puts out the eye of a freed slave, he shall pay 1 mina of silver. The stell's final sections address workplace safety, consumer protection, and even tenant rights. Some of the most meticulously detailed laws concern livestock accidents and brewery operations, revealing what truly mattered in daily Mesopotamian life. Historians still debate whether these laws described common practices or aspirational reforms, but the specificity suggests they addressed real disputes. A group of tavern keepers bursts into laughter at the specific measurements for beer servings. Apparently, ancient Babylon had its share of bartenders watering down drinks. Even domestic disputes now include the refrain, but the code says ... The stony shadow stretches across Babylon as it begins its journey through history, from living law to museum artifact, but its principles of accountability, proportionality, and social order will echo through the ages. Out of the way, he barks. This eclipse prediction is 300 years old, and the kill team waits for no one. The mainstream historical fact. Ashurbanipal's library contained over 30,000 texts. The quirky their catalog system included tags like works that make you go and tablets we should probably check again later. In a restricted chamber, senior scribes compile what future archaeologists will call the Survival Edition, a curated collection of essential knowledge to be hidden in multiple locations. Some of the most carefully preserved texts are cookbooks and beer recipes, proving ancient priorities were so different from ours. As the chief librarian explains while packing a tablet, no one rebuilds civilization on an empty stomach. Their selection process is brutally pragmatic. Do we really need all 17 versions of the barley harvest prayer? Dozens of scribes work in shifts, their hands moving tirelessly as they duplicate texts onto more durable materials. As the Tigris and Euphrates continue their endless journey to the sea, they carry fragments of forgotten prayers and the echoes of scribal laughter. The empires have crumbled, the ziggurats stand in ruins, but the ideas born here, writing, law, mathematics, astronomy, flow endlessly into the future like underground springs feeding later civilizations. Let the rhythm of their irrigation canals lull you now, as the same moon that watched over your rivers once more. A teenage apprentice sneezes, nearly toppling a stack of fresh tablets. Careful, hisses his supervisor. That est the only surviving copy of How to Treat Scorpion Stings. You about to destroy, one asks, while another argues passionately for preserving a seemingly nonsensical text about copper that sings. One priest argues the divine mandate gives it moral authority, while a merchant praises its predictability. In the medical wing, a team debates whether to recopy a controversial treatise, claiming malaria comes from bad air near swamps rather than demonic possession. Nearby, mathematicians argue over a 400-year-old tablet proving the pi theorem centuries before Pythagoras, complete with a cheeky footnote asking why is this useful again. Picture Hammurabi's laws etched not just in stone but in humanity's collective memory. See the stars that once guided Mesopotamian sailors still shining above your own home tonight. Historians still debate whether this collection was meant for practical governance or the king's personal vanity project, but the diversity of subjects suggests genuine scholarly ambition. A young woman traces the divorce provisions with her finger. They grant her rights to property under certain conditions. Librarians spring into action with practiced precision, some carefully blotting wet tablets with linen, others mixing fresh clay for emergency copies, a few simply cursing in 3 languages. A young conservator works magic with a mixture of beeswax and resin, stabilizing a damaged tablet containing the only known copy of an early flood myth. If this one goes, she mutters, we lose the original 2x2 story. Nearby, a farmer studies the agricultural laws that protect him from predatory lenders. It's 645 BCE, and you're standing in the world's first, systematically collected repository of knowledge, a place where the entire Mesopotamian intellectual tradition is being desperately preserved as the Assyrian Empire crumbles. Around you, scribes work feverishly by oil lamplight, their stelae flying across fresh clay tablets, while others carefully copy crumbling older texts onto new. This isn't just a library, it's a race against time to save civilization itself. The code's genius becomes clear. It's not just about punishment, but about creating a society where everyone knows the rules. Only the nobility seems uneasy, their traditional privilege now constrained by written rules. Their whispered complaints sound remarkably like modern political grousing. This will tie our hands, and the old ways were better. The sophistication becomes clear. This isn't just brutal retaliation, but a nuanced system accounting for social status and intent. Nearby, a merchant cheers upon hearing clear rules about debt forgiveness after natural disasters, while a moneylender scowls into his beard. The mainstream historical fact: this represents one of the earliest comprehensive legal systems. The quirky detail: the code includes specific compensation for injuries caused by collapsing beer barrels, apparently an occupational hazard in ancient Babylon. As the reading continues, the legal revolution unfolds, clause by clause. The afternoon sun beats down as the scribe reaches the contract laws. A builder, listening intently, pales at the penalties for shoddy construction. If a house collapses and kills the owner, the builder shall be put to death. His apprentice whispers, maybe triple-check those foundation bricks. Meanwhile, physicians exchange nervous glances at their claws. If a surgeon causes death with a bronze lancet, his hand shall be cut off. Medical malpractice suits have never carried higher stakes. As twilight descends on Babylon, the legal revelations take a surprisingly modern turn. The mainstream historical fact: Hammurabi's code influenced nearly all subsequent legal systems. The quirky reality: in the palace courtyard, scholars gather to discuss the code's implications. As torches are lit around the stele, you notice ordinary citizens pressing their hands against its smooth surface, as if absorbing its power. Dawn finds the city transformed. Merchants argue cases in the marketplace, using direct quotes from the stele. Children play law court games in the streets. The scent of melting wax and aged parchment fills your nostrils as you enter the shadowy scriptorium of Ashurbanipal, his great library in Nineveh. A harried archivist rushes past you, arms overflowing with tablets from the omen section, his sandals slapping against the polished limestone floors. As you explore the labyrinthine corridors, the scope of this intellectual treasure trove unfolds. The afternoon brings a heart-stopping crisis as water leaks into the royal correspondence section. As torches flicker against Nineveh's twilight, the library's most secretive work begins. The mainstream historical fact: this preservation effort allowed Mesopotamian knowledge to survive empire collapses. The quirky reality: midnight finds the library's courtyard transformed into a scriptorium under the stars. The wind-down begins as dawn's first light touches the 300-word wind-down. The same rivers that gave birth to Mesopotamian civilization now whisper its epilogue, in the quiet between wakefulness and sleep. Imagine the last librarian of Nineveh sealing the final clay tablet case, knowing some truths are too precious to lose. The great cities may be dust, but every time you check the time, write a note, or argue about fairness, you touch the living legacy of those ancient dreamers between two rivers. Sweet dreams.